provides research-based practical financial education. Our members learn better money strategies based on behavioral finance science. Science! At Renify, we teach about the underlying drivers of our behavior, and that knowledge leads to better decisions, and better decisions lead to an improved quality of life. Visit renify.com to discover how you can experience financial wellness. Thank you. Thank you again, Renify. So to folks in the room with us, I will be keeping an eye on the chat so we see what you're saying and notice your questions. You can also use the Q&A tool to put your questions in, and we're going to look to answer them as we go. If they're super meaty and we know we're going to get to it, I will delay a little bit with that. So again, thanks, Keela, for coming and for being on Conversations with Melissa. I appreciate your should have jumped in without. Love that. I love that. So Keela and I only met very, very recently on the phone or on Zoom. And she is a local Texas, local to me. So the conference is going to Dallas, and she lives in Irving and is a productivity ADHD coach in that area. And she works with students, parents, and families impacted by ADHD. So middle school students, adults, and I really like that you work with families because, you know, once there's ADD in there, it's sort of everybody's got to figure out how they're going to work with it, what's their part. I love this part of your bio. After spending many years learning how to manage your own ADHD, Keela found solace with mind mapping and vowed that whenever she became a coach, she'd spread the word about her newfound knowledge to ADHDers everywhere. I just love that. So I'm right up there with your mission for spreading the word about mind mapping. So, and I just, you've got such great energy and just fantastic attitude, and yay, Texas. I'm going to be hosting our conference in just a few weeks. So thank you so much for being here.
Sure. Thank you so much, Melissa, for the conversations in the past and even today. I also want to give a special thanks to Rick and Renify for allowing me to have this opportunity to come on tonight. And everyone else who's joining that's even still, either you're in the chat or you're getting ready to come on, I just want to say hello from Texas. We love you. And if you are not a Cowboys fan, I'm sorry, but seriously, I'm just happy to be here.
So what? I know, once you find the team that's your team, man, everybody else, you're no longer a contender.
Yeah.
Oh, so when did you first discover mind maps?
Sure. You know what? It's really crazy. So I didn't even realize I was mind mapping until I would say like 20, when I was 20 years old at the time, when that was a junior year in college. And really all I would do, because the year prior at 19, I was diagnosed with ADHD. And so for me, I would just always be like, okay, here's a central thought for me, and let me just branch out, in terms of just kind of really deprocessing, my mind. And then eventually I started reading about it. And then I had someone to tell me about it, because I was a political science major, but I was also a pre-law student. And when I found out, again, I had ADHD, I started kind of going through, just different on campus, we had different strategies and, just like student support groups, if you will. And so someone actually talked about it. They talked about mind mapping or, just like brainstorming, if you will. And so I was like, oh my goodness, I've been doing this naturally and didn't even know it, because again, like I said, even when I was in high school a long time ago, I would literally just write a central topic and then just kind of create like little branches and kept moving. And so that, I would say that was the first time that I recognized fully that I was mind mapping.
So there's something about this that is just intuitive for you. That's what I'm hearing.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And the reason why I would say for me is because I have a lot that I think about. Sometimes I think a little bit more than what I should. So I had to find a way to kind of help myself stay organized and and really just avoid distraction. And outside of journaling, because I've been journaling ever since I don't know, I was a kid. It's to the point my sister used to go through my journals and all that stuff. But I really wanted to find a way that can really help me, stay on track. And like I said, initially it was just more of okay, I have a pencil and paper, I have a particular topic or theme or subject. And then I just branch off like, okay, well, how does this make me feel? What does this relate to? And then I just kept going from there. So it's for me, that was just a natural occurrence for me.
Well, I'm impressed because I mean, I've taken paper notes. I still use a pen and paper, and I do that thing where I'll write something down lower on the page and put a circle and drag, hey, this thing relates to that thing, which somewhat, but it's not the level that you're saying about it, how you've used it and how it helps you with productivity and helps you zero in. That's what I'm hearing you say.
Yes.
I do see a hand up. So I just want to say that we're not going to take questions by calling on people over here. If you want to put what your question is in the chat, then I'll happily read it. There's a lot of moving parts. So you have this intuition. Where do you think it, I mean, you kind of said it a little bit, but I just wanted to, sort of underscore your answer with this, but where do you think it makes the biggest impact, either with you or with your clients when you're working with, and I love that you're working with both students, families, adults, that you've got this mix of people, all with whatever the ADHD elements are. Where do you think this, when it comes in as a new thing, where do you think it makes the biggest impact?
I think it impacts me as the coach, but also the client. And I say I can start with myself personally. As a coach, there's a business. As a business needs structure. Now, also because my background, so I'm a project manager by trade, and I've really needed that a long time ago in my previous life. But even with my clients, this also helps me stay structured with them. Because it's almost like I'm reaching one, teaching one. So I learned, how to mind map. And that's a skill that I want to be able to enable other people to do. So in order for me to do that effectively with them, I first have to understand what that looks like in terms of my own productivity, in terms of my own, understanding how I'm organized in my own life as a mom, as a wife, as a relative, as a friend, in all these different spaces. So I really feel like it's more of it's not so much just one or the other, but it's really a both and, if that makes sense.
It does. It does. I like that, both and. It's sort of like the more the merrier. Right? It makes a difference. And then this is the other thing is sometimes when ADHDers are going to a practitioner, a provider, an MD, a therapist, that person's looking through strategies that might be ADHD friendly, so they're not necessarily using them themselves. And I think there's this huge value when, I announced earlier, hey, I have my cheat sheet, we have an order of operations. When the how it works is not hidden, when you show your cards, and then people go, oh, this is how you're using it, and it sort of clicks for them how it's applicable to them. Maybe in the exact thing, apples to apples, and sometimes apples to oranges. Okay, I can see you're using it this way, but it would be applicable a different way for me in some way, right? Maybe.
Yeah. Well, and the way I look at it too is, number one, I am an ADHDer. So I can clear that up now. I have ADHD, and everything that I have done to really understand how I work as a person with ADHD, I want my clients to know that, number one, it's okay if you have ADHD. And then secondly, you're not just talking to someone who's reading about it, who maybe maybe not so much have that personal connection with it, but someone or something about it. But for me, it's just like, no, I have it. And so since I have it, this is something that has helped me first. And I'm really passionate about mind mapping because it's so much you can do with it. The thing is, you have to learn how to do it effectively. And and it's nothing against, counseling, nothing against support groups. But at the end of the day, as a person who has been diagnosed recently or even been struggling with ADHD, still kind of walking in that imposter syndrome and or shame, guilt, and all those symptoms going with it, at the end of the day, you still have to learn how to move forward with it. And a part of that is you have to tackle this distraction. You have to avoid procrastination. You have to understand your triggers. And mind mapping is one of those ways where it's like a very creative way where you're able to, visually organize how you are going to get some of this stuff that's in your head. Like I mentioned before, I have a lot of brain chatter. Even when I was taking, because I was on at a time I was taking ADHD medication, it helped me. Yes, it helped me silence that. But at the end of the day, guess what? After my little, 10, 12-hour period, my mind is still racing. It's still racing. So it was still some of those things that I have to learn in terms of strategies and tools to keep me organized, to keep me focused, and ultimately be productive.
Wow, you just said like a ton. I love how there's no shying away from these things about self-advocacy and the internal chatter and the shame. And there is that some people have got some perfectionism, but you said imposter syndrome, and that can be so real in other ADHDers where, and then earlier when you were talking, you said something about law school, and I was like, oh my God. Really signed up for the whole enchilada there. Wow, just bam, so present. So really appreciate it. And that imposter syndrome, like there's some things where we're good at it, right? We have a talent or an interest, and we kind of go, oh, well, that old thing.
Yes, that's true.
But not everybody
so
has
true.
that old thing.
Yeah. And, a lot of people don't, but I've met several people who really haven't accepted ADHD. So it's almost like you're trying to find the remedy to something that you first haven't even accepted yourself. You're not willing to accept that you have this diagnosis, if you will. And so for me, I always want to start there. And I tell my clients that the first things first, ADHD 101. Do you know what your ADHD look like? Because ADHD has it varies in terms of, different symptoms. Number one, you might be more inattentive. You might have, you might be kind of leaning toward that hyperactivity side, or you just might be me. I am a combination type person. But even knowing that, accepting that, okay, yes, there are some times where, as a project manager, I get bored. I really, for example, I hate meetings. Melissa, I hate meetings. And it is nothing wrong with meetings, but when meetings after a while, just mentally, I shut down. Yeah. So I know that in terms of meetings, the best time to have a really nice meeting is during the time of the day where I am really focused. And for me, that's in the morning. So if you try to come at me at like 3:30, 4 o'clock and say, hey, Keela, let's talk for an hour or so, you might not get that from me. But again, that's also me knowing my ADHD. And I think when you have the imposter syndrome, it's one of those things where you're like, okay, I'm working, I'm gunning, I'm hustling, and all these different, adjectives and adjectives to really just show that you're grinding, right? But at the end of the day, it's still pointless if you don't realize and haven't fully accepted, hey, I have ADHD, and it's okay. It's just okay, and that's just my mindset now. I'm just like, it's okay,
right? But spot on,
it's
right?
really okay. It's not the end of the world. I mean, it's. And I'm so happy now that we have so many, like, now granted, so I found out, like I mentioned, it was 2006 when I found out that I was diagnosed. And me personally, I really struggled with that because I was like, oh my gosh, I'm trying to be a lawyer and I can't be a lawyer and I got an F. Like I never had an F. I was never on academic probation. So all these different things. So I felt like I had to really, cover up and work and overextend myself, overexert myself. And I did that for years. I did it for years. And it was to the point where I'm like, you know what? Who cares? No one really cares. And that's the thing. It's just people only care if I care. So in order for me to really do well with what I have, I first have to accept this is who I am. But not just, but not really wallow in that, but move forward, learn how to better myself with it. And really just thank God that I have the hyper focus, because I think that's one of the best gifts of ADHD, is to be able to hyper focus, especially when you're interested in something.
You said another just jam-packed couple of sentences, which was the hyper focus. You can lean on it. And this idea of knowing what's your ADHD look like. When I was growing up, I could sit still for hours. No one in that time period with what was known about ADHD would ever have thought I had that. So getting in touch with what is the inattentive type, how is it manifesting for you? So then as a coach, when you're working with somebody, you kind of know, hey, these are the pitfalls. This is the areas to look for. So we're getting questions like, hey, let's show a mind map. So you sent me 3 things. So there are multiple levels. I'm just going to show the first image.
Okay.
And I'll share screen. Just give me 1 second to do that. So here we are. This is image 1. I hope it's visually consumable for other folks. So it's got your central topic in the middle. This is handwritten on paper, and really part of what was so appealing to me about talking with you is we don't need to buy something. We're not marketing anybody's software. You can get started with this just with a pen and paper, or a crayon and paper, a writing implement and paper. And why is that important to me? How are we going to know if this is something that works for us without trying it a little bit? And so there's no cost in trying it a little bit with the Keela's method. So I'm going to stop talking and let you talk about this slide.
Sure. Now, I will say as a disclaimer, you do have, of course, the virtual and digital software for mind maps. But right now, since this is just a primer, like mind mapping 101, I decided to just show it just handwritten. So the first things first, if someone says, okay, what is mind mapping? Mind mapping, in a very, very simple term, is just being able to see visually what your thoughts are, and also parsing that down to the root. So I usually say that if you want to start, you can draw a circle, square, triangle, etc. That's your central topic. From your central topic, you have an associated idea and or topic. After that, you can branch off to say, here's the subtopic 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. And then within the subtopics can actually be additional root topics for that. And I hopefully, if you can go, can you go to the next one? Because I want to show you guys what I wrote as a mind map. And for example, just say you have you want to talk about your vacation plans, vacation ideas. So I created a mind map to show you what that looks like. Okay, time management. So I use this one. This is just an overview of what time management look like, because at the end of the day, we all say, hey, you know what? I don't have enough time. Where does the time go? It's only so many hours during the day. So for me, I just use this as my personal one. Now, it varies depending on the person. So for me, as you see, time management is going to be my focal point, because I'm trying to figure out, what does this look like for me? How do I spend my time, and also, spend my time more wisely? So you see on the left, the upper left, I have job, career. Job, career is going to be in terms of my time. This is how I spend my time in my job and my career. So the green branches are really just branches of what does all of these things that correlate to job or career. So as you see, like yellow box, it says I out of town, I travel a lot for my job, I have meetings, I have mentorship opportunities. I have the day-to-day operations. I have to attend conferences, networking events, partnerships. And then from there, we talk about, for example, like day-to-day operations. What does that look like? That's budget, that's schedule, that's staffing. Out of town, I have logistics. I have to keep my receipts for expenses. I have, training materials, speaking engagements. That's just all that I do in terms of my job. Not to mention, I have 3 other subsections here. I have household management. Household management, I'm cooking, I'm cleaning, I'm paying the bills. You have the yard work. Okay, you talk about that. Let's break that down. Paying the bills, when, what, how will I remember that? Cooking, when do I cook? What's the schedule? What am I going to do? Grocery shopping, cleaning, what supplies do I need? When will I start? It's various things that you can think about.
Mhm.
Let's go to myself. So I'm talking about myself in terms of my social, in terms of my social environment, my spiritual, my physical, my mental and emotional well-being. How much time am I designating to those areas of my life? Okay, social, I have friends. Physical, getting to the gym. Spiritual, reading my scripture, going to church. Mental, emotional well-being. One of them I wrote self-check-ins. Yes, I agree, Rick. It is a where's Waldo. It is. It's so much you can do. And the beautiful thing about ADHD, because I'm gonna tell you guys, it took me like 30 minutes to do this. And the thing is, I've had this is like my 4th or 5th revision, because it was some of them where I literally had a full, literally 2-3 pieces of paper, just writing out everything, because I just allowed my ADHD mind to say, okay, you know what? Man, when I think about it, I can parse this down so much. And even, like I said, family. I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a relative. And then also you have all these different things there. But like I said, this is just a really simple, simple high level overview of what a potential mind map look like. And this is just writing. Don't let me get started on the virtual one. If I use my software, oh yeah, it's going to be longer than this. I would really need like an actual whiteboard to get it done. But like I said, this is just something that, just again, in a high level overview, to just kind of show you, okay, hey, I have a particular idea or topic. I want to, associate it with another idea or topic that's related to, to my central theme. And then how far can I really parse this down to, number one, get organized, number two, increase my productivity, and then also to really kind of help me, like brainstorm. You can use this in project planning.
Mm-hmm. Yes, but this looks like at the end of the year, right? Maybe sometime where you look backwards at your year and you say to yourself, maybe it was the pandemic year, and maybe you had cut out certain things because we had to be in lockdown, right? And then you went back and said, where was the time that I took for my emotional well-being, for this circle you've got, maintaining peace and avoiding stress, self-check-ins, that you might take this, which shows your priorities, and then be able to marry it to a calendar. Okay, so I'm going to put journaling, for example, which is part of your emotional well-being. I'm going to make that a daily activity that I do before bedtime or something like that, so that you have this thing where you spent some time brainstorming, and then all of these things are significant to me. How am I going to apply them to the actual 24 hours of a day, 7 days of a week, month, year? Where will these things come into play? So I'm going to stop the share just for a sec. I did hear some people, I did see some things in the chat where this was overwhelming, but this is a way that to capture all the full breadth of an idea or a brainstorm. We could be doing this, for example, if we were in school, like a book report. The title of the book could be the center, the main themes, right? And then you could, the characters and how they relate to the themes. This tool has many applications, and you could start to notice how you're thinking about a thing with what's the dominant theme in order to write a book report. Okay, the thing I noticed most is, I'm trying to think of a book we all know. All right, maybe The Cat in the Hat or The Grinch That Stole Christmas. All right, there's this thing, and it's really about the community, right? There's this community of the Who's, right? Okay, well, once I start parsing out the thing in the book and the characters and these main themes, I think this community theme that's so big at the end of this book, I want to make sure that that's when I write my book report. That's the theme I'm going to talk about with the Grinch. It's not going to be so much Grinch as about the Who's in Whoville, right? As an example. Okay, so let me ask a couple more questions and then we'll go over to your third image in just a moment, because I know that was a project that was got a brainstorming element to it. When you're working, let's say, with parents, where do they utilize this? I mean, you put time management, and it was all the things that you want to be sure that you use your time for. That's how I saw what you were saying. These are, there's elements in my personality, there's elements of what I'm trying to accomplish in life. They all need to happen in time. They're part of time management. What other ways, when you're working with clients, do they use this tool?
Sure. So we can talk about families. Now with families, that's kind of it's an interesting, dichotomy with families, because one or two things: either, you're coming to me because you want to talk about ways or strategies to help your son or daughter, improve their particular time management, or you yourself are dealing with this. And in addition to that, you have a child that's also dealing with it. So with that being said, based off of, both of those scenarios, the second one in particularly, if the parent is diagnosed with ADHD as well as the child, then mind mapping, now granted, it won't look the way that I just presented it, because more than likely we're going to talk about one thing. For example, as a mom, we're gonna still use time, but what does time look like in terms of household management? We can just solely focus on household management, but then we might have to create another mind mapping strategy in terms of, okay, how do I as a mother help my son or daughter? What am I doing to ensure that this particular child is able to be organized in their life? For example, I had a mom I was talking to actually 2 weeks ago. She was telling me this. She said her daughter is, she's 14, by the way. She's fully aware that she has ADHD. She's taking, right now she's on Vyvanse. So she's taking Vyvanse. And she said, my daughter's fully aware of, her emotions. She knows what she wants to do. But at the same time, it's hard for me as a mother to get her motivated to do her chores, because baby girl just don't want to do her. She does everything else. She just does not want to do her chores. And so she's just like, what can I do mind mapping wise, to help her see the value in creating, and actually cleaning up behind herself. So I told her, I said, okay, what about this? Let's talk about it. So I asked her daughter, I said, okay, in terms of chores, you write chores in the middle. This is going to be your central topic, chores. How do you see yourself with chores? What emotions does that bring up for you? What topics, what associated topics, subtopics, etc. What does that bring up for you? And so when she did that, I talked to mom. I said, okay, and mom, you do the same thing. What does it look like for you? So when we both got together, I said, okay, mom sees this as a way of being independent. The daughter is saying, no, it's boring. I don't want to do it. So with that being said, I said, okay, right. Just off of that alone, you see that when you think about the word chores, it means different things to do to two different people. So then from there, I said, okay, you know what, mom and daughter, let's make a mind map together. One where both of you are able to understand the value of chores. And from there you go. It's in a way I took it like that because, again, some of these things that we're talking about, these topics, it means different things to different people. So when we're working in that family structure in particularly, it's valuable for the parent as well as the child to be on the same page. And I think sometimes that, with ADHD, especially with moms and dads, you're saying, oh, well, you know what? I don't want to coddle my child because they have ADHD, but at the same time, I just want them to get it. And then the child is like, well, I understand that I understand that you want me to do X, Y, and Z, but I'm just being a normal child. I don't want to do it.
Right.
Yeah.
But also the languaging, right? So for mom, chores are stuff that, right, chores, things I want that kid to do, right?
Mhm.
In my family, they like to phrase these things as a question, like, how would you like to wash the dishes? It's like, no, but I'm still going to do it because that's the thing that I do. And my parents had split, so my mom was working. So,
Yeah.
if dinner was going to happen at dinner time, it meant that I got it ready. And when she came home, we could eat it. Right.
Right.
So I don't remember seeing that as a chore per se, but
It
it's
varies.
interesting. It's the perspective on it is very important, and the name. And I know, like the last time we had the live conference when we were in Philadelphia, the thing that you're saying about working together in the family, where their collaboration as a family, that was exactly what they were putting out there that
Mhm.
worked the best. Because nobody wants to be in an authoritarian universe where you have no say. Kid wants to have say in how it goes.
Right.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
All right. I want to take the thing I saw in the Q&A. My biggest
Sure.
challenge
Do you
is,
mind if I get some water? I just want some water really quick.
please have us. Yes, take a minute to breathe. Breathe. My biggest challenge is I struggle with sitting down and breaking down the action items. My mind deprioritizes planning over action. Like I'd rather do the plan thoughts. And I have heard this from other people, like the planning, the manipulating, um the chairs, right? Like
Mm.
rearranging the deck chairs is sometimes what I call it. On the one hand, yeah, you can get it to be very efficient. On the other hand, you still have to do the things.
Right.
Doing still has to happen. So let's go back to that question. My biggest challenge I struggle with is sitting down and breaking down the action items. My mind reprioritizes planning over the action part. So how do we, this is not a mind map question. That's
Yeah.
how I heard it. How did you hear
Yeah.
it? What do you hear?
Well, from what I heard is you're in that stuck phase. You initially you want to initiate a plan of action, but you're getting stuck planning. And so I'm assuming the question is, how do you move past the planning to actually start acting, if you will? So the way that I would address that question is, you have to first understand that you're getting distracted for some reason. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Rick. Because I saw. Did Rick raise your hand?
Oh, yeah, but I was willing to wait my turn. But since I've already interrupted, the way I read that question is he prioritizes action. He would rather act than plan, and I really identify with that. It's almost
Mhm.
painful to sit in the chair for half an hour and plan. I'd much rather just do, even if I have
Yes.
to do it over again.
But here's the thing, though. You can't act without a plan. And so the thing is, I'm like that too. I rather act, but if my action still is not aligned with some sort of structure, then I'm wasting time. I'm wasting time if I'm not, really focusing on strategies for me to actually implement what I'm planning.
So how do you do that? If you're the, ready
Mhm.
fire person instead of the plan and aiming person, how do you slow down long enough to actually plan before you do something? Because that was what I heard in the question, and maybe I'm projecting because that's exactly what I deal with. Planning is almost painful. I mean, sometimes I can plan for hours if I'm trying to avoid something, but typically it's hard to plan. I'd
Mhm.
rather just do. And you're right. I mean, you shouldn't, but you certainly can just take action. It's just that it doesn't work out very well.
Yeah. Well, what I usually do that helps me, I love the Pomodoro technique. If no one, I don't know if people are familiar with that technique, but so it's ultimately it is, for 25 minutes, you put a timer on. It can be whatever kind of timer. I only just use the digital online timers. And then for 25 minutes, I'm saying, okay, I am only going to focus on this particular thing. Once the buzzer goes off, then from there, I take a 5-minute break. And when I say 5-minute break, I literally take a 5-minute break. I don't use that 5 minutes to sit here and think about something else. I literally find myself decompressing, as in I go for a walk, hit a meditation or whatever for 5 minutes, and then continue to do that. And the reason why I do that is because I can, from a personal perspective, I used to be lost in planning. I love the art of mind mapping. I love the art of, just having to-do lists, but it got to the point where really I am procrastinating. Ultimately, that's what I'm doing. When you are planning long-term and you're not moving, you are procrastinating. But on the other spectrum, if you're acting and you're not planning, what you're doing is you're going to find yourself in a phase of being distracted, because now I'm just going, but in the midst of me going, how am I being productive? You're not being productive, because what you're doing is it's almost like kind of like that squirrel syndrome. You see something, shiny object, I'm gonna just focus. Then I see something else, I'm gonna focus. And really what you're doing is you're just being busy, but being busy is not being productive.
No.
And so that for that particular person, I would say try the Pomodoro method. It doesn't have to be, I do 25 minutes, but if you want to just start off, say 15 minutes, you do 15 minutes, and whatever it is that you need to do, you focus on that solely for 15 minutes, give yourself a 5-minute break. And if you do that a couple of interims, I usually, so in a working day, what I usually do, I do it about 6 times. 6 times to kind of put me around that 6-7 hour mark. And then, hey, the day is almost over with. Yeah. And that little hour or so, if I want to allow, my ADHD to come in and she just wants to be distracted, guess what? That's fine, because in the hour prior to that, I've done everything I needed to do. So, I mean, that's something that that is what has helped me. Now, everyone's different, but that's what has helped me.
I love the Pomodoro. I like your description of it was very excellent, because sometimes people are that 5 minutes, that is, you were driving your car and you drove it for 25 minutes. That was your brain. And now it's out of gas, theoretically. And the 5 minutes is to refill the tank.
Yes.
And then drive another 20. And 25 minutes is kind of like a heat. So I've done Pomodoros. I find they're a little too short. Like I'm still in the thing. And I like an hour. But remembering to take the break to refill and not just drive until you're on 100% empty, right? Because then nothing feels doable. You have to, this break, some time out in nature. I think you said something about that you empty your mind. Maybe you did a mindfulness activity, but this thing that we really need to stop pedaling, if we were in the Flintstones car where it's all your feet.
Or you know what, you could just take a nap. Like I found out the power of naps, like taking 5-10 minute naps. That's another way where you can just reset and recharge your mind.
Yeah.
That, and it's so funny because I'm like, I had a girl, I was talking to a friend, I was talking to her about it, and she was like, you take adult naps? Yes. Like that is something, it's really refreshing to take a nap during the workday. Like it really is, because again, this is another way to help you, just organize yourself. You're going to rest your mind doing that.
You do have to rest your mind. And, going to an office, right? Nobody would take a nap anymore, right? Because we've got this peer pressure, and that's the way offices work. And this where people have some days home, or they're working from home all the time now. You can go, hey, I ran the tank out. I'm going to take 5 or 10 minutes to lay on the sofa, maybe listening to music, and then nothing is going to happen for a few minutes. So you can fill your tank back up. Power naps, right? That's great. Yes. Hey, let's take another moment to go look at your third one of these, your third image. And I don't see any more Q&A questions. So folks, if there's more Q&A questions, let's put them in there, or I am watching the chat. Okay, so here's your last image.
Sure.
And this was your vacation ideas.
Yeah.
So this is a brainstorming example, right?
It is. It's a brainstorming. And I did see someone ask if this is something, mind mapping, this is something that you can use for a daily or weekly planning. Of course you can. So I just use this as an example for, like, you know, this summer's passed, so next summer I was like, okay, what do I want, you know, what are some vacation ideas for the, you know, potentially that my family and I can attend next year?
Yeah.
And as you see, I just wrote out four different opportunities where I can go, 4 different places. Granted, you can be as simple or as complex as you want, but I will say this, as a ADHDer, you have to understand the more complex you are, the more you're kind of toggling that line between becoming like you're procrastinating and being distracted. So I would say that if you are not familiar with mind maps and how to do it effectively, and effective means for me being able to really stay focused within the time of which you're going to do them, actually, you know, create the mind maps or even, you know, outline it using a software, then me personally, less is more. That's just bare bones, less is more. So going back to this example, you see, I just wrote four different options hypothetically. We could go to Scotland if we want to go to Scotland. You know, Scotland has various different places. I went to Iona before, so it was just kind of example. But if you want to go to Iona, you can visit, you know, a Dun One hike. You can do a cave. You can do the Iona Abbey. Alaska has various different options. If you're going to go to Hawaii, then you say, hey, you know what? Where in Hawaii do I want to go? Where do I want to go in California, Vegas, etc.? These are different options. And because again, ultimately what you're trying to do is become productive. You are trying to avoid that little person in your head that says, you know what? I want to ruminate forever in your mind. And the best way to look, I always tell myself that when I think about my ADHD, I see a little girl playing. That's all she's doing. She's getting dirty. She's getting messy. She's throwing, she's coloring. She's doing everything you can do. She's literally rolling around on the floor until the other half of myself comes in and say, you know what, young lady, let's clean this up. Let's put whatever it is that we have on the floor, let's put it in compartments. Let's put it in boxes. Because again, at the end of the day, if I am not, you know, if I'm not organized, if I have all these different cluttered thoughts, it's going to reveal itself in my work life, my personal life, and everywhere else. And so to answer someone's question, yes, you can use this for daily. Daily for you could just be, okay, again, you don't have to go through a whole list, but maybe 4 or 5 prominent items that you want to talk about. Okay, work, you know, household management, you know, whatever it may be. Weekly, if I personally do for weekly, what I do is for weekly mind maps, I have to do like a daily one because I know that from week to week for me, it changes. I wouldn't, again, spend my time trying to do a whiteboard from Monday to Friday with mind maps because you have to really ask yourself again, am I really being productive?
Okay, hold on for a sec.
Sure.
So I want to look at your vacation ideas because this is great food for thought. Some of what I like here is I feel like you probably included your family a little bit in the beginning, this beginning part, because this original Harry Potter tour that you've got for Scotland, right? Maybe your kids are Harry Potter. Maybe you're a Harry Potter fan.
I'm a Harry Potter fan.
I like him. So there's some hobbies, there's things about your family that you know. So for example, if Alaska, for me, there would be another one of these lines off of here about taking maybe a cruise or maybe the train trip. There's a train trip that goes from the water all the way up to Denali here. You've got this running reindeer ranch, right? So there are, when we're using this for brainstorming, it gives us an opportunity to capture all these other elements around vacation. What if you were a rail fan, a train fan? right? Would there be other train things that would be related to each of these? Even in Hawaii, there's some rail stuff, right? Mostly because it had to do with like the sugar farming. But anyway, all right, I digress. So these things are totally personalized. And the elements that you add, they're the ones that are significant to you. So we've got a few questions in the chat, in the question and answer tool about setting priorities. So one of the things I liked about the earlier image we showed is you had some things with highlighter that was color indicators. The other thing I liked about you, and even your keep it simple mantra of less is more, is we don't need a highlighter on this one because you're still batting the ideas around, unless you, for example, was like you, your kids, your partner, you looked at this and there was 2 or 3 votes for Alaska. That might raise it up out of these, like maybe Hawaii would move further down the list. Maybe these would start to get a priority, right? Depending on the interests in the family. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing the image just for a minute. And come back to that question. Do you set priorities in your mind map? Is there indicators that you use for priorities?
Yes. Yeah. So that actually kind of goes into, I wouldn't so much say it's like high level, but it's a little bit more complex with the color coding. So I know there are some mind maps out here that are, if you kind of look, and I'm sorry guys, I didn't provide an example of that one, but there are mind maps out here that are specifically color coded. And so, for example, like if you use my second image where I have time management, and then, you know, the first left, you have job career, that whole section just might be, the first branch off to that might be purple. And then purple can go from purple to household management, could be green, et cetera, et cetera. Now, the way that I personally prioritize my mind maps is if I am using colors, again, I have to just do this without being distracted, right? Getting distracted or procrastinating eventually, is I have to designate with the colors, I'm using that to designate which of these particular areas or topics that I find that I want to focus on first. And then I color coordinate that accordingly. So for example, if I say, you know, just using, we can just say, we'll just say using my job career. I'll put that in purple. So that's first, because if I'm a single person, I'm not married, I can focus on that. I can use that, you know, more so than anything. Whereas like right now, it's like right now for me, what's first in my life, if I had to go back using that same, you know, time management, it's going to be my family, because I have an 18-month-old baby. So I have to make sure that everything else around that is really allowing me to be flexible, so I can kind of, you know, meet his needs with school, you know, anytime he gets sick, et cetera. So that's how I would prioritize it. I prioritize it based off of my colors. And then from there, I'm creating kind of like a little legend to the side, if you will, for me to let me know, okay, this is, you know, these are the areas of importance for me. But again, everyone does it differently as well. But that's just how I do it.
But this is the thing, is the mind map has to work for you. So this idea where, this is part of why I said I like the paper model method for people, because as a starting point, right? You can get used to how you do it, and I love that you like purple. That's my favorite color too. So purple, yes, the priority is purple. It's not blaring red when it's Keela and Melissa. We make it purple if it's a priority.
You know what, when I think of red, I think of red as in, okay, this is like a hot commodity. I'm in danger. Red to me, it's like, even my little cup, I love my little mug my friend gave me, another mom, but I'm like, that means something's going on. So I try to stay away from red as much as I can in terms when I do my mind maps, because it shows me, okay, I'm in trouble.
Okay, that, you know, because sort of red is like it's on fire. Oh my God, you have to pay attention to it. But purple seems much more agreeable to as a priority. And there's other purple lovers amongst us, so that's very good. All right, so let's see what other questions are in here. I'm very curious how to use how you use. This is a person who's a coach, so let's slow it down a little bit and say, mind mapping with clients. As a coach, I'd love to incorporate it with. So that's the question. So was there an organic way? Is there just a, you use them so it sort of had an organic quality when you started bringing that to the party?
It wasn't. It was one of those things where, because I actually also have DISC assessments in my coaching. So initially what I do is, after we've gone through the consultation process, from there, the first, like I would say, like our VIP day. So the literally first hour or so, I approach my clients and say, okay, I want you to take this DIF assessment. Now, granted, I don't do this with children because time frame. And it varies depending on the adult as well. But for those who are able and capable to sit through maybe a 30 to 40 minute assessment, I ask them and I kind of implore them to do that for me. And so based off of the DISC assessment and the analysis from there, then that's when I'll go into describing, with the client, like literally a rundown of his or her life from an overview in terms of, how he or she thinks, how he or she is perceived the world and how they are perceived by others. But more than anything, what I'm looking for during that time is how they, collaborate. And so after this collaboration is done, then from there, I start talking about mind maps. Now, after we're talking about mind maps, once I introduce the concept of mind mapping, the first things first is this. It's not going to be, oh my goodness, I'm going to give you a whole tutorial on what mind maps, I'm going to teach you and train you. No, this first things first, we're going to use mind map as a mind mapping. Like we're going to literally use mind mapping to mind map in a sense that our central topic is mind mapping. You as a client, what does that mean for you? What does mind mapping what does it mean for you? And then from there, based off of, just the simple, like we talked about with the vacation ideas, something simple as that, that's when I'll know how to approach them in terms of the degrees of complexity.
Wow. Okay. I mean, I want you to know that I saw at least 2 different people, one of them being Rick, saying, I'm going to have to come back and listen to this conversation. It's kind of meaty and stuff went past a little fast and I want to go back and look at it.
I can talk fast, y'all. I'm not trying to.
Okay. Nobody's got a fire underneath you. You can take your time. I put a little link. I know this says 2017 trends, but it was kind of interesting. I know he's not you. I want to share just a little bit of it for people to have a look at what's appealing about it, to me at least. So this is close to the end of his report. And this was what was interesting is it's got some research that it cites, and there's this increase in productivity, even from new users earlier in this report, which is only 20 pages. There's this increase in creativity, right? Yes. And then people earlier in here, it lists highly complex ideas are more digestible in this format, that people can understand complex ideas this way. It saves times, that presenting ideas so that other people can understand your ideas. And this, people who are expert users get the biggest payoff from it. It was a very interesting report. I did put the link in the chat. The other things that he had said that this was useful for, or actually I have had a different science person up. So this one was better memory and recall, better creativity, and better connections between concepts. And there's the person who originated this idea. He had some thoughts about, always having an image. And so people who are using it, they find that, oh, we don't necessarily have to follow that guy who started. It's kind of like the bullet journal. He had some ideas and they worked for him, but when you're using it, you could do what works better for you. So I'm just going to share this screen. It is what we have been saying, but it's visual for people who that's their learning style, right?
Of
Some of us
course.
are kinetic learners, some of us are visual. So this, obviously by somebody British here with center spelled that way. So you've got your main idea in the center, which is exactly what we said. There are people who use colors, this idea of things branching off the main thing. One keyword so that it's not so busy that you can't consuming at a glance. And they had using images. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing that for a second too. Do you keep your mind map in front of you every day at work, like a printout? Like, is this
I
thing
used
right
to.
next to you?
I used to actually, but now no. No, I've gotten to a point where I really just kind of keep my planner. But I used to, when I first started this, and just even early in my career, when I was a project manager and even coach, just a coach earlier, I did. But now, no, I don't.
Very interesting, because there's a lot of people who they'll do those future boards, right? What do I want? Where do I
Vision
want
boards.
to live? What do I want I can't remember what they're called.
Vision boards.
Vision board, right? So this idea, does this thing keep you on track next to you? So we know, most people, you've used a tool, right? The tool starts to work for you. Do you sometimes you have to go back to basics, to the beginning, and put the tool it's right next to you. Don't forget how to use it. And sometimes we go, all right, I've got a running start. I don't really need to have the training wheels next to me anymore. I'm moving. Things are in motion. So I could understand why. All right, first I kept it right next to me, but now I've got my stride and I don't have to have it right next to me.
But I also do sometimes though. Even since that's the case, because like I said, I used to just kind of put it on the side, but I don't anymore. But there are times where I do kind of, reference it every once in a while and kind of go back to kind of, bring that to my memory. But yeah, no, as of now, I don't, I don't. But now certain things I will say that I keep, because I have a walk-in closet. So there are certain mind maps that are really true and dear to my heart. Those are placed within
that's so cool.
within my closet. But yeah, day-to-day stuff.
All right, I've got one other
thing
to look at, so I'll pull it up. I will put the link to this in here in just a sec. So this is another sort of just the facts for mind mapping, but I really like this image. I'm try not to give us all agita.
I love it.
This is very much like what you had shown us. Time management. What's the things? How this person's idea about the time management, they were over here talking about monitoring progress and follow-up and how are they going to do it. That they didn't have the same way you thought about my time management, but your time management works for you. This is somebody else's idea of how they're going to think about it. And I like that this had color and that they had doodled it up because they had that skill set. Me, I would never do all of this drawing on here. I just doesn't, this is where Keela and I really connected. Hey, I don't need it color coded. It just has to be simple and, less is more to help me get from A to B.
But it looks good though. Because I've saw a couple of, I know some people who actually, they're really proficient in mind maps and they take the time to draw these nice images. And I'm just like, I'll do that. I'll get distracted so bad. So, but no, it looks, I like it. It looks really good. Visually, it looks good. And it's kind of cute.
Yeah, it had something going for it. It's just, I wanted to show, like, if that was who you are as an artist, right? And you had this skill set and it would speak to you, knock yourself out, right? This is the same thing as the bullet journals. If the bullet journal and making it decorative with this, pretty writing and it worked for you, great, right? If you don't have that skill set, I've seen other people who get one of those little cameras with a little film and they can print out images and put them in the book, right? But this is about the thing working for you. And if the doodling is distracting, right, then just do the part that works best for you. This is interesting. So I'm just going to read this. I'm sorry, because I'm a little distracted, but it looks so meaty. I want to read it out.
It's okay.
I've been working and building my binder of ADHD topics in my life, starting with topics that came up around the ADHD tax class. A mind map is a natural addition to these sections, to any of these sections that I've been imaging, and I also help me parse out other topics to put on my radar. This is in an effort to bring myself together, a big picture for myself, and not to lose the themes. And it lights up your brain. This is the key thing about this mind mapping that is my husband uses a mind map in a different way from Keela altogether. But to capture all the ideas in one place, that it sparks you, it speaks to you, right? If you start doing it and you find, oh, this is just another chore, then hey, that wasn't the thing for you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's defeating the purpose of trying to stay, visually organized. Yeah.
All right. I'm going to go back and look. There was one thing in the Q&A that I have not answered yet. So how can you translate a mind map of tasks? This was very good. I think we sort of beat around the bush, but we can always say this one again because it's so meaty and delicious. Or hearty. How about I go with hearty? I know there's some vegans amongst us. How can you translate a mind map of tasks into a weekly or daily plan? Is that possible? If I do figure out a project and its steps, how do I turn that weekly or daily plan into a plan to get things done? So on the one hand, there's this idea where you could flesh out your book report, but then you still need to write the book report, and that still has to happen in time. So how do we take this thing that is great for conceptualizing a plan and then move it into time bound quality?
Yeah. Well, I'm a project manager, so I think I'm gonna have to answer that way. Let me see. The way that I would do it is, so using, just kind of using just the format of a mind map. We'll say the central topic now becomes the plan, the actual project, and then the associated topics are now what I would consider to be milestones. From there, the subtopics and then root topics, etc. What I'm calling those things are what I would consider to be task activities. And so, again, as a project manager, what I would do is I'll take all of that information and I'm going to put it in what I consider to be like Jira, Confluence. I use different project management tools to kind of make sure that helps me. You have Asana, you have Trello. I work in IT, everyone, but prior to that, I was a construction project manager. So I use all of those various project planning tools to help me in terms of organizing a project. Now, but prior to all of that, you still can do this in terms of mind mapping. So mind mapping for you would be, again, daily. If we're going to start daily, whatever the topic is that you want to talk about for the day, you use that central topic. And then when you branch out, those associated topics are really now becoming your milestones. And then the topics related to the associated topic, those are actual task activities. Again, which you could correlate into an online project management tooling. That's how I would take it. That's how I would, formulate that. But like I said before, in terms of weekly for me, it's really done daily, because I don't, because if I do a weekly project plan, I'm gonna have to use a whiteboard. I'm gonna really have to use a whiteboard and then go based off of the milestones. And then now we're getting ready to talk about what that looks like in terms of iterations for your project. So it's a lot that you can do with it. It is, whoever wrote that question, that's so good. Like, it's a really, really meaty question. I thank you for that. I really hope I answered it. If I didn't, if you want me to elaborate a little bit more, but
no, I feel like you did. And then I heard you saying software, and I felt like I wanted to ask a question that's completely, we never talked about it, but I want to come up with it. So I can't remember the name of it, but there is in the software universe, they're doing Agilent. Is that the word for it?
Agile, yeah.
Agile. Can you say a little bit about that? And is that a helpful tool to you? And if it's not, let's
Oh
just
my
run away
goodness,
from it right now.
yes. Okay, so if you're familiar with Trello, it's almost like Trello, Asana, Jira, Confluence. They're really all the same in a sense that, for example, like Trello to me is like an online interactive mind mapping. Oh my goodness, Kristen, I love Trello too. It's really great. It's great. Because what Trello does is this: you have, different sections, but one of them is your to-do. You have your to-do, you're doing, and you're done. And so the best way to think of it is like, if you have whatever particular task that you need to get done, and then you move them around based off your activity. So if you want to even go back further and say, okay, mind mapping from the central project, from the central task, which is whatever project we want, the associated idea or topic is now, like I mentioned before, it's a milestone. Within that milestone, you have the task activities. Those task activities can be now imported into your, whatever agile app.
So what I'm hearing is there's this compatibility with other tools that you might be using, and
Yes, ma'am.
Your buddy put in there that it syncs with your Google Calendar. So you
It
could
does.
use this format where you've got the mind mapping, park the dates for when things are supposed to be due, give yourself a 24-hour notice so that you remember that you don't have that it needs to be turned in the next day, right? You can use all these other tools that relate to the Trello. I already put in my notes, maybe we want you to come back and talk about that more.
Yeah. It's so many different, I know, an internal one that we use is Miro, Miro. That's another one. We use Asana. You have playbooks. You say, okay, so can one create mind maps, Arcade? Can one create mind maps in Trello? Yeah, Miro is good too, Kristen. I don't know. I feel like the only way that you can create a mind map, if you will, in Trello, Arcade, is really, you kind of created it already, but what you're doing is you're just kind of using your task, your individual task activities, you're putting them under a milestone. So I don't know, it's kind of, I never thought about it. To be honest, I never thought about it that way. I know for me, what I've done is, like I said, kind of, again, going to put my project manager hat on now. What I did is just like using the mind map to just kind of overall provide like an overview of the particular project. And then from there, those associated tasks becomes a milestone, which and then correlates to, okay, a to-do. And then subtask would be, because under the to-do, you can actually go down a little bit. You can parse it a little bit more. From there, you're creating task activities, and then you just kind of, move your map accordingly per your project plan. So I hope I answered that.
I think the people who are familiar with that they probably are hungry for more.
Yeah.
So I had put a couple of things like other very clear what you could use a mind map for. So we said book report. We have talked about projects where there's, the main theme, or the other parts of the project, maybe who you need to communicate, and a timeline, so many elements. And that this could be used for brainstorming, right? Capturing all the ideas of people in a group and the things that relate to, the first idea, the other ideas. And then for problem solving, this seems like brainstorming and problem solving both, where you'd put a lot of things. I thought for myself, I could imagine using this tool for holiday planning, because there's a lot of things we have to do for the holiday. There's your work Christmas party, maybe your church Christmas party, or whatever religious affiliation. There's always something in that time of year. And then, if you belong to other clubs, like my husband and I have an old Dodge Dart. So there's a couple of car clubs. When are those things? So there's these things that happen in time, right? Then, he's got his work buddies. Who are we baking for? Right? How much timeline and baking and all of what that is going to be? Who are we purchasing for? Oh, people, you need to not give them a baked good, you need to give them a bottle of wine at work, or something like that. How it all unfolds in time. If there's for example, Doug's family, they have a thing where they do at Thanksgiving, they pick out which adult gets which adult so that there's not a lot. We don't do a lot of buying for the other adults, but for the kids are all going to get gifts. So you could put all of these different elements in the mind map, all of the things that have to do with the holiday, you know, all the way up clear through New Year's Eve. You could put all of that stuff in this one place and capture it, and then either using an electronic method like the Trello, have it push over for when are things due, or when do you need to buy the ingredients for what you're making, or mailing things, when's the last day to get to the post office with those things, right? Or you can manually do those things.
Yeah,
but
you can.
This mind mapping can hold many, many, many ideas.
It does. It does.
Are
It
there
does.
more
And then,
than
like I
those
said,
things? Is there other ways you've used it that we haven't said?
no, I mean, like I said, outside of, project planning, just, personally, it's almost like it's just become a part of my lifestyle because, when I think about things we have to do, just, living, if you will, everything has a plan. You have to have a plan for everything. And it's sad to say sometimes I've kind of gotten to a place where everything in my mind is like a project. And maybe that's just the ADHD in me, but it's a project. So for me, whether whether I am using an online tool to help me, or even if I have to, just break out a pencil and paper, I'm in my own way, I'm still mind mapping. I'm still, moving different things from to do to done. And that's just that, yeah, that's me.
I really like that because there's no bar of entry. We can just try this thing. You're ready to give it a try, see how it works. So there's a comment. I was experimenting with Mind Node and Asana, but when you don't have a strategy on how to use them, are they helpful? I feel like there's a question in there. I'm hoping I can apply the things I've learned tonight to make a better use of those apps. So that kind of brings me back to one of the questions we were planning for, which I'm not sure if you already answered it, which was, what are the best online mind mapping apps or services? Which ones do you like that you feel okay recommending?
Well, I know MindNote is good. So if you are a Mac user, that is phenomenal. Like I'm a Mac user too, so MindNote is pretty good. I really like MindMeister. That's another, simple tool. You also have one called FreeMind. That's pretty cool. Now, if you're kind of going more toward like the agility piece, like if you really want to go into that project planning, then I'm a fan of Trello. Hands down, Trello is good for me. I really like Miro. Miro is another one that I use, and I've dabbled a little bit with Asana. Asana to me, it's another one as well that's easy to use. Now going back, if you don't have experience with them, if in terms when I say them, I'm talking about the social interactive portion of it. I personally, again, will start learning about it from just hand to paper. Now, MindNote, but to be honest, MindNote is really easy to really form because it's like, okay, initially, you have a topic, you branch off, and it's really simple to use. But again, but before you do anything, I always go into it with understanding the intention of what is it that you want to mind map, and then why? What are you trying to get out of your mind map? So for example, if my intention is to understand and really parse down, okay, vacation ideas, because I know that this is a vacation opportunity that's getting ready to come up, but I need to know for myself, where am I going to go, what we're going to do, how long it's going to be, etc. Then I'm going into my mind mapping for vacation ideas, intentionally. And I think that once you understand what that looks like first, then you're able to kind of use some tools. Now, I would say for a beginner, you can use, let me see. I don't know, because all of them are really cool, but if you want to do like a beginner mind map that's really easy, simple to use, I would say it's something called Koogle. It's almost like Google, but it's Google. So it's Coogle. That's one that's really, really beginner friendly online. That's a really easy one that's online. I really like MindMeister too. That was pretty easy for me, just kind of going into it. Now, again, if you're kind of going toward that project planning, project management side of things, easy beginner mind maps. You can try Asana is easy. Google, not Google, I'm sorry, Asana, and then Trello. Those are very, user-friendly apps for mind mapping. Yeah.
Okie doke. Right. I put a few in there that you mentioned so people can get to them. So I want to mention to folks who are in the room that because we're using the webinar format, you may or may not be able to save this chat. You might be able to click on the links and get them to open, but you might have a problem. If you private chat me your email, I will happily send the chat to you as right after we're done. So you're welcome to send me just private in here so that it doesn't just go to the panelists, then I'll get the note and I will be sure to share that with you. Wow, you covered a tremendous amount and recommending these other beginner tools that are the computer users. I know I sometimes get easily frustrated by the computer, and that's why I like the idea. Just take a pencil and paper and put a circle. And here's the beginning, and you don't have to get caught up in what are the shapes and how is it going to look, and you can get yourself started with it. I'm going to use a little bit of a longer explanation, which is, sometimes people go, oh, I love cooking, so I think I want to become a chef. So I'm going to go to chef school. And then they spend all that money and then they find out it's kind of hot in the kitchen and these hours, really, you can't spend the holidays with your family. And they go, this wasn't for me. So I had heard somebody who was an expert chef say, hey, the thing to do is to get yourself into a really good restaurant, or at least food you like, maybe someone you want to emulate, come in at the lowest level, whatever you can do to get your foot in the door, then try it out, see if you like working in the restaurant. Then after you see, yeah, this is kind of the thing for me, now I'm going to go spend and go to restaurant school. So this is sort of the same idea, like, let's get our feet wet without spending any money and see if this, just thinking about it this way, works for us. All right. Excellent. So I've seen a couple people sent me there, this, that, and the other. We are going to be taking a couple of weeks off from this because I am a co-chair for the conference, the ADHD conference, and I got to get my eyes on the prize over there, going to Texas to see Keela. All right, I do see this note in the chat. Thank you to Lisa. All right, so I need to get back to my order of operations because I forget what I'm doing.
This has been good. This has been really good. I really appreciate, the feedback and the chat, the questions, and I'm happy. I really like talking to you, Melissa, and Rick. It's been good.
Well,
it's been good.
This is the thing is I feel like this is my favorite way of learning. So anyone else who likes to learn this way can kind of, draft off of me, where I really learning from how other people are saying they're doing it, showing me a concrete example, something I could do, like we could hang up from this. I could pull out my notebook and just, that idea of what am I going to do for the holidays, for example, or all of what's happening in Texas, right? Do I have my lodgings? What do I could plan my whole trip with that. So I feel like, hey, I'm going to go put it to use. So I'm so glad that you came and you've been so generous with your time and questions about the paper version and the electronic version, and then your project manager hat was just value added, just amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. Again, I really appreciate this conversation, with Renify and just seeing Rick again. And then also seeing you too, Melissa. It's been a pleasure. And like I said, to everyone who's joined, I appreciate your time tonight. I do.
So I've got a couple of housekeeping things and then we'll close the meeting out. So for folks who were here at the beginning and did that little self check-in, right? on the scale of 1 to 5, 5 being full of energy, ready to go, woohoo, and 1, the other end of the scale, fatigued, tired, out of gas, meh, right? So I'll say I feel like I have even more beans. I'd go with 4.5, maybe 4.8. Woohoo, ready for more. So I'm an invitation. You can either put it in the chat, you can keep it to yourself. Just notice, did this give you more ergs? Did or not? You know, I find being around people to be very stimulating and gives me a lot more energy. And I'm seeing that reflected in folks in the room. So that's great. I do want to say a couple other things about our host, Renify. So Renify has a group on Facebook that is open to all. You do not need to be a Renify member. I'm going to put that in the chat here. And so they are doing a weekly self-care challenge. And that could be something that helps you move the needle on your self-care. Renify has got the Success Clinic, which I lead, which has just moved its days to Wednesdays. And so Success Clinic is a place to find support and community, share your feelings, be heard and accepted, and connect with peers. We are working our way through Ari Tuckman's Understand Your Brain, Get More Done in the book club over at Renify. And then there are a lot of courses. I think there's a new home buyers course. The ADHD tax course is just finishing up. And there is a budget class. Rick also has open office hours, which is, what time is the book club? The book club is on Wednesdays, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. And we're just finishing up that book. So we'd like to know what's the next book we're going to do. So we're looking for input. So anyway, Rick has office hours. So those are, I think, Wednesday and Sunday, but twice a week. And that's, you get some one-on-one time with Rick, which I have heard is invaluable. I get my own one-on-one time with Rick, which I can say I just get a lot out of it. And we have an accountability and body double group, which has moved to the beginning of the week. So you can do something with accountability and the co-working, the body doubling. We could take a page out of Keela's book and be doing a couple of 25-minute heats. We could be doing a Pomodoro in there. So last but not least, about Renify. So at Renify, we teach about the underlying drivers of our behavior. That knowledge leads to better decisions, and better decisions lead to improved quality of life. Yay! Visit Renify and discover how you can experience financial wellness. Oh, look at that. We're getting some. This is the nice thing about the Renify community, is they're very helpful. They'll look stuff up if you forget something. Hey, what was that word? How do you spell it? And so I love that. I already see Atomic Habits. Please do that. So I have an insider on that. My husband's very familiar with Atomic Habits. All right. Thank you so much, Keela, for being here with me today and for sharing your wealth of knowledge. And I know that we want you back because of you just was like we filled the whole 90 minutes, but I know we could. It was so delicious. We all want more. So
thank you
very much.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I'll be back if you want me to come back.
I feel like it's in the cards for us all.
Yes.
All right. Okie doke. So I'm saving the chat, and I'm going to wish everybody a nice weekend and rest up as much as you can for tomorrow. See you soon, Keela. Bye, Rick.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Soon.